All right, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to update the incidents from last night in Queens, in the arrest in the 113 precinct, as well as another major arrest in transit. So those will be the two cases we'll be talking about, and we're going to start with the Honorable Mayor Eric Adams.
Thank you so much. And I just really want to thank the men and women of the New York City Police Department. We have continued to make New York City the safest big city in America. 2023 showed that we had a substantial decrease in homicides and shootings in 5 of the major 7 crime categories. But when you have a chilling incident as a person who chooses to randomly assault and stab individuals not only on our streets but also on the subway system, it just sends the wrong message to New Yorkers that use our subway systems and who live in the various communities of the city. I know that area in Rochdale very well. I grew up in that community, and so I was alarmed, and I communicated with the speaker who also grew up in that community and told her we were going to have a full deployment of personnel to apprehend the person that's involved. And 22 hours later, we were able to bring that person to justice. And also this morning, we were able to apprehend the second pattern that involved stabbing on our subway system. Chief Kemper will go over that. We're standing here as the executive of the city and the leaders of the police department, but the real credit goes out to the men and women knocking on doors, probably 1,000 interviews and interaction with New Yorkers, the tip hotlines from New Yorkers who saw the photos that went out to assist us, and then the men and women who just walked the streets. These officers and detectives, the chief of detectives should really be commended how his troops went out and interviewed people and really did just good old-fashioned police work to bring this suspect to justice. He attacked 6 individuals. It didn't appear as though he was looking to stop anytime soon, and thank God we have no one that lost his or her life because of this incident, but it did send real fears throughout our entire city. So it was crucial that we apprehended and brought him to justice. Job well done by the police department, the detectives, and job well done by New Yorkers, the close to 1,000 people we communicated with to ask for their help in bringing this person to justice. I want to turn it over to the police commissioner of the city of New York, Edward Caban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everyone. So last night we reached out to New Yorkers to amplify a very important public safety message. Our city is being threatened by random, unmotivated violence. And today, just hours later, we are pleased to say that this particular threat is ended. A violent criminals off our streets because of good old-fashioned police work. And as we said yesterday, personnel from Detective Bureau, Patrol, Special Operations, Transit, Community Affairs, and more will all work in this case. And on top of that, the more than 8 million New Yorkers were acting as our eyes and ears. Ultimately, it came down to basic detective work. Chasing down leads, knocking on doors. It was about walking through neighborhoods and talking to people, interviewing witnesses, and canvassing video. And through it all, we remained focused on one thing: ending this threat. And now this man is in custody. We will go about the work of getting justice for his victims, and we will continue the work of keeping every person we serve safe. I also want to commend the men and women of the NYPD who did their job so well in this case. Every day they prove to the world that they're the very best at what they do. And I want to thank you, the public, for working with us so closely during this investigation. New Yorkers came together. We all did our part. And today, because of that, our city is safer. I will now turn it over to our chief detectives, Joe Kenny.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'm basically going to briefly discuss the apprehension of this individual. So the Detective Bureau had an immediate response to these incidents. We utilized all assets available. For the incidents that occurred in Queens, we used the 103 and 113 squad, the Queens South Homicide Squad, 2 detectives from every squad assigned to Queens South, the Queens South Video Collection Team, the Gun Violence Suppression Division, and the Queens Transit Crime Squad. For the Brooklyn incident, we utilized the 8-3 and 9-0 detective squads, the Brooklyn North Homicide Squad, the Brooklyn Transit Crime Squad, the Brooklyn North Video Collection Squad, and the Crime Stopper Tip Team. These detectives were tasked for one thing and one thing only, to go door to door, store to store, interviewing people and interacting with the public. In an attempt to locate witnesses and find sources of video to identify this subject, they distributed wanted posters to every member of the community they interacted with. Locations that were visited included the Rochdale Village apartment complex, the Baisley housing development, all residences located near the vicinity of the crime, all commercial locations located in the vicinity of the crime, including the Guy Brewer corridor and the businesses located on Broadway in Brooklyn. All shelters and temporary housing facilities were visited, and transit hubs located at Sufton and Archer, Parsons and Archer, and Broadway Junction were also visited by our detectives. These efforts were rewarded. At approximately 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon, a community member allowed detectives access to their video system. Detectives were able to view a male fitting the description provided by several victims entering and exiting 133-19160 Street. Surveillance was immediately set up at this location, and detectives were able to locate a subject when he returned home. The male was wearing the same clothing and sneakers from the stabbing incidents. He was also carrying the same backpack, and he was also wearing that distinctive lanyard around his neck. He is identified as Jermaine Rigor, male, 27 years old, with a date of birth of 12/21/1996. He resides at 133-19-160 Street. He has no prior arrest history. He is currently charged with the four incidents that occurred in Queens. We are still working on the incident that occurred in Brooklyn. His charges in Queens include attempted murder, felony assault, and criminal possession of a weapon. Chief Kemper now will speak about the additional incidents that occurred in Midtown North and in the Bronx.
Thank you, Joe. So I'll talk about 2 stabbing incidents that occurred yesterday, one in the Bronx, one in Manhattan, both in transit. These 2 stabbing incidents are not connected in any way to the 6 stabbing incidents that Chief Kenny just discussed. These are separate and distinct. Nonetheless, 2 incidents where our perpetrator came upon victims and stabbed them unprovoked. The first incident occurs yesterday at about 6 o'clock in the morning on a D train in Manhattan at 59th Street and Columbus Circle, where we have a 42-year-old male victim on the train, and he's stabbed one time to his right shoulder by the perpetrator. Our second incident occurs about an hour and a half later at 7:30 a.m. On a 2 train in the Bronx at East 174th Street, where we had a 19-year-old male who was stabbed one time to his left arm while he was on the train unprovoked. Quickly after both these incidents occurred, we learned and we realized that they were linked and they were connected, and that the same individual would be responsible for both. How we came upon that was through video, and we often talk about the video in the subway system, how much there is and how valuable it is. You know, based upon collecting that video, images were distributed to all transit offices and police officers throughout the city. A large deployment plan was created, and I'll bring you to this morning at about 7:20 a.m. I'll bring you to the Bronx, and I'm going to bring you to the Bedford Park Station, where we had multiple police officers assigned to that station as part of this plan. The officers were in the station. They heard a commotion. They went to the commotion, which was on a southbound platform, and as they were approaching the platform, they saw a male run away from them. It turns out they chased this male through the station, successfully apprehended him, put him in custody, and it's the individual responsible for the 2 stabbings yesterday. He's wearing the same clothing, and it should be known that he was in possession of 2 knives when these officers chased him and apprehended him. This individual is a 27-year-old male. He's a Queens resident. Again, he's in custody right now. This individual has multiple prior arrests. He's well known to us. His arrest history includes 5 arrests just in the last 12 months alone, ranging charges from assault to sex crimes. He is in custody, and charges are pending. Thank you.
All right, so we'll take questions on both incidents. Miles.
So 2 things. He was charged with 3 counts of attempted murder, but there were 4 incidents. Can you talk about that? And has he been linked to Brooklyn as of yet?
So right now, he's being charged with attempted murder in the incidents that occurred on January 16th and the 2 incidents that occurred yesterday in the 113 precinct. As of right now, he's only being charged with assault on the 4th incident that occurred yesterday, but still working with the Queens District Attorney's Office. That could change. He is definitely linked to the incident that occurred on the J train yesterday. Great video canvas produces him walking through the turnstile, wearing the same clothing, wearing the same backpack, and that distinctive lanyard that was hanging around his neck. So we're going to eventually have probable cause on that incident. He will be arrested for that incident later on. We're working with the Kings County District Attorney on that one.
And he got off at Flushing, I guess, because he works, right there at the hospital. Can you talk anything about his hospital background? Or
The lanyard itself is basically was holding identification card that shows that he's an employee of Woodhull Hospital.
We're going to go to John Doyle.
Hold on one second, Colin. Doc, you want to just come up and confirm?
Sure.
Good morning, Dr. Mitch Katz. I'm the CEO and president of New York City Health and Hospitals, and like all New Yorkers, I'm incredibly grateful to the New York Police Department for making us all safe. This particular individual did work for Woodhull. He completed a background check, and as you heard from the police chief, he had no priors. So even though we do fingerprinting, his record was clear. He passed the background check. He has only worked for us since mid-November. He never worked independently at Woodhull. He was still 100% being observed as part of his orientation. His job was greeting patients as they came in and directing them to the appropriate place. He, of course, now we have a zero tolerance for any violence at our facilities. He's on administrative leave, and as the rest of the legal system process continues, he will undoubtedly, when found guilty, be removed, but he will never return to Woodhull again.
did he go to Woodhull yesterday?
I do not know if he was at work yesterday.
All right, we're going to go over to John Doyle, CBS.
This question is for Mayor Adams. Mayor Adams, you would mention that the NYPD and the Dragnet communicated with 1,000 people, members of the public, during the manhunt for the suspect. How would the How Many Stops Act affect this manhunt in that case, if the proposed How Many Stops Act?
Well, when you look at a case like this, you have New Yorkers participate. As you heard, we were able to get camera footage by knocking on doors, interacting with over 1,000 people. The numbers, and they just are using a hypothetical, it will have a major impact on the time that is spent in use. If you do the math on, the number of, this is probably accumulation of 2 days of work. And if we're going to look at this, if the bill was to go into law, it could have a major impact on the ability of officers swiftly bringing someone to justice. Those 48 hours roughly, 49 hours roughly of doing paperwork could impact in the immediate and the quick response. When you're taking a dangerous suspect off the street, every second matters. Every second matters. And that is why I think the intentions of making sure we properly have transparency is getting in the way in the operational aspect of that. And I think this case sort of personifies why we have a great deal of concern, because I don't want officers to spend a substantial amount of time filling out paperwork when I need them to do police work and swiftly bring someone for justice. So this could, really impact investigations of this nature. And these are the types of investigations that we talk about that I think people don't realize. What these detectives had to do, they had to knock on a great deal of doors. They spoke to a great number of people. And New Yorkers want that cooperation and that interaction. And I think that we need to really think about this as we move forward dealing with this bill, the bill intro 586.
And John, just in addition to that, we did have a member of Community Board 12, Reverend Thorpe, will just speak real quickly about her opinion on that issue.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
And good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and everyone else that's here. I know that what I'm going to say may not be popular, but it's a reality. I'm a retired New York City police officer, and so what looks good on paper doesn't necessarily register in the street. For the work that was done yesterday in capturing that gentleman, and South Jamaica is grateful to the officers, the detectives, to the inspector, and to the precincts which are under my community board, the 103 and the 113. To have to take names and addresses of every single person that you speak to on the street, even just on a regular, normal basis, is not realistic. If you are stopping someone because there's a whole police thing going on, and so you're checking them for whatever reason, there's a suspicion, that's one thing. But for general conversation, no. That's taking up too much time. That's impeding the officers for the rest of the day to do paperwork. We don't want them tied up in paperwork. We want to see them visibly in the streets, on their posts, and in the community. And they should be able to interact and have conversations with community personnel, with community, without then going into, I need your name, I need your address, I need your... That type of information would then and could open up frustration, because now the community, not understanding this bill, will turn around, why do you need my name? Why do you need my address? And that will cause strife. And now you have an officer that's going to be stressed out because he's been told or she's been told, you must have this information or else. So let's not put them in that position. Let's not cause that type of strife. Let's just work with what we already have and make sure that that's done correctly. Thank you.
All right, Juliet Papa, 1010 wins.
Good afternoon. Could you tell me whether this person had any mental health history issues, on and off meds? And also, did he live in a private home or was that an apartment building?
So he lived in a private home with some roommates. He's a new resident to Queens. He formerly lived out in Suffolk County in Wheatley Heights. Obviously through our computer work here in New York City, and naturally we reached out to Suffolk County Police Department as well. We've had no indication at all that he's had any kind of mental difficulties.
All right, we're going to go over to Mark Morales, CNN.
How you doing? Anything on motive? Has he said anything as to why he wanted to do this?
No, he didn't indicate any reason for the attack. He's provided no motive. And based on our investigation, it just seems the only incident that was provoked was the incident on the bus where there was an argument and a dispute over a seat on the bus. The other 5 incidents, including the one in Brooklyn, were random. The one in the 90 precinct in Williamsburg, we had witnesses stating he was pacing the train car prior. He stood over the victim, and as the train doors opened up on Flushing Avenue, he plunged a knife into his victim's chest and simply just walked off the train. No, we're not. No, not at this time.
All right, we got Nicole Johnson, Pix 11.
Just wanted to follow up on the motive. Any indication he targeted specific victims?
If you look at his victims, they range between members of the African American community, members of the Hispanic community. He's got males and females, and the ages are a wide range. So we don't think he was targeting any one group specifically. Once again, random attacks.
All right, we got time for 1 or 2 more. Tom Tracy from the Daily News.
Very quickly, the weapon was recovered. Can you talk a little bit about it? Was it a hunting knife? What kind of knife was it?
At this point, from the video, it appears to be a hunting knife. He has indicated himself that weapon is in his backpack. We have not opened that backpack yet. We're waiting for a search warrant from the Queens District Attorney's Office.
All right, this will be our last question. Miles Miller.
One more thing about how it's stopped. So Adrian Adams, before the end of last session, said we put forth this bill. It went to NYPD Intergov. It went to NYPD Legal, and she says the legal department is who made how many stops, more difficult in terms of reporting. Can you just talk about that? That legal is the reason. NYPD Legal is the reason why this is more arduous.
No, and this is so important because I think the intentions were one thing, but the application is another. And as the Reverend stated, although officers don't need to name, address, telephone number, and that, what the officers do have to do, they have to guess the ethnicity and others, and they have to write down the reason for the stop. What the council did not understand is the definition of a level 1 is codified in a court ruling. We can't modify what a level 1 is. Any action we take to deliver service or that form of investigation requires that. So what they thought was possible is to modify the definition of a level 1, and we can't. So the New York City Police Department cannot say this is what a level 1 is going to do. That's codified in a court ruling. And based on that, all of the stops that these detectives took place on knocking on doors, conducting an investigation, they all falls under the category of a level 1. And I believe there was a misunderstanding on exactly could we modify level 1. The council can't modify level 1, and we cannot modify level 1. That is defined by the by the ruling. And there was so much energy put in of explaining and showing the description of this is what a level 1 is. If they would have excluded this type of inquiry, then I would stand next to them on a bill of that nature, because this is what I dedicated my life to doing, stopping abusive behavior, stop and frisk. They made the misunderstanding of level 1s cannot be modified. What these detectives did, the thousands of doors and interactions and stopping the public, each one of those interactions under this law, if it's in place, each one of those interactions, you're going to have to tell a basic list of items and then indicate why did you stop this person or why did you interact with this person in the first place.
Could there be like a carve-out at some point where you have a massive manhunt and that could be an exception to doing all this paperwork?
And that is what we negotiated and tried to explain. Carve this out. If we're looking for a missing person, if someone stops and say, my daughter is missing, that should not fall under this. If I show 100 people this young girl that's missing, each one of those individuals I stop, before I move on, I must gather their information. That's taking seconds and minutes and hours away from finding. And so in the hypothetical, if this was in place, then each time these detectives interview someone or ask, do you know the suspect, they will have to document who this person is, and that's an accumulation of the amount of minutes that's going to take. We're talking about 49 hours, 2 days of actual footwork turned into paperwork. And that takes time off of apprehending a person who's out there assaulting New Yorkers.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you. Yep, we're going to do a picture with the 113.